Hey, what's up soldiers, my name is GregFPS, the Zombies Extraordinaire, and welcome back to another video here today on the channel. Today what I have for you guys the Black Ops Cold War Zombies report card. How this works is I picked 10 different aspects of Cold War Zombies, and I'm going to give them a rating from 1 to 10. At the end of this video, we'll combine all the scores out of a possible 100 and give you guys a final grade for Black Ops Cold War Zombies. I do want to mention that I appreciate the Treyarch development team and all the work that they do, and I will be giving constructive criticism in this video as well. Thanks for watching. Let me know your score down below in the comments section. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to be taking a look at is going to be the gameplay mechanics. Now a lot of stuff changed in Black Ops Cold War that actually made a huge difference. Having the different rarities of weapons and triple pack-a-punch right off the bat was things that I thought were actually really good. Having rarities to different weapons, especially when you get them from the box and things like that, was really cool, and upgrading as well with salvage and high and low grade salvage was all great. Also, you had armor, which was something different that I was a little skeptical of after World War II zombies, but it actually ended up working out pretty well with Juggernaut, which I think was great. And last but not least guys, we also got the build table that had tactical, lethal, and support streaks and equipment, which I all thought worked out really well. So overall for gameplay mechanics, I'd give Black Ops Cold War Zombies a 9 out of 10. Alright guys, next up we have the guns in Black Ops Cold War Zombies, and overall I would say that there are a pretty good amount of weapons, but the problem with guns in Cold War Zombies is how many weapons are actually viable. There's only a handful of weapons that I choose every single game. It consists of the Gallo, the M16, sometimes an assault rifle but not usually, and then also I use like the Howler and Street Sweeper occasionally and things like that. And that's just because there's only a handful of weapons that are actually really good, and the rest of them are just subpar and not worth using at all because they either don't deal enough damage or they're just not as reliable as some of the other weapons overall. So as far as guns go, another good aspect of the guns and why it's such a high rating is actually because of the Dark Ether camo. It made it accessible for pretty much everyone. There's a lot of Cold War Zombies players that have Dark Ether camo, and that's just a testament to people that actually enjoy the gameplay mechanics as well as like the gunplay. Now overall, like I said, a lot of the weapons just aren't as good as others, and that is kind of the only drawback, but it's cool that a lot of people got Dark Ether camo. I think the challenges should have been a lot harder in my opinion, because it kind of sucks when you like grind for a camo and you're one of the first people to do it, and then everyone and their mother by the end of the game has it as well. I want things that I can grind that not a lot of people have, and that's one reason why I played a lot of Dead Ops and stuff. But anyways guys, for guns, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Alright guys, so first off is going to be the map design. Now, I don't want to complain that the zombies maps were based off of campaign missions, because that's always happened when it comes to zombies and Call of Duty campaigns. That's just how it is for the most part. Like Black Ops 3 was an exception, and also Black Ops 4. But for example guys, like I remember Launch was a multiplayer map. It was also in the campaign, and then it was also Ascension, and they tied it all together as one, and it worked really well. But the problem that I really have with Cold War Zombies is that every single round-based map we went to a different facility, and I think that was just overused way too much. I understand that there was outbreaks at different areas, and it was all related to having those areas that were facilities where they exposed themselves to zombies, but I feel like it was just overdone too much. And also when it comes to outbreak, I'm not a huge fan of having to run 2 to 3 minutes just to get to an objective. I think the maps are a little bit too big, but it seems like in Vanguard they're going to be a lot smaller, which I think will work a lot better. So for map design, another thing is the atmosphere. I feel like on Marauder especially, and even Forsaken as well, I feel like the atmosphere was really on point. Treyarch has always done a really good job with the atmosphere, and I think it worked out really well. But overall for map design, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think that they could have done a little bit better, but overall it's not terrible. Alright guys, next up is Easter eggs, and I just want to start off right off the bat by saying Forsaken had some great side Easter eggs, and I would have liked to see that across all the different maps. But as far as Easter eggs go, I feel like they told us what to do so much, especially on maps like Firebase Z, for example. Like that Easter egg was solved in 2 hours. Also on the release map, Die Machine, everyone already knew how to upgrade all the weapons, like the big YouTubers, before they even released the Easter egg. So it was done in literally an hour and a half. So it definitely got longer as time progressed. I think Forsaken was like 3.5 hours, maybe 3 hours or something like that. So it did get a little bit longer, but I feel like the Easter eggs need to be longer as well. Not just like time, but also steps. I feel like now that people are speedrunning Forsaken, you can do it solo in like 15 minutes if you get good box RNG, which I think is way too short for an Easter egg. It should have been a lot like BO3, like Durazendrak, for example. I don't want to compare the maps to Durazendrak because it will never be another thing that happens where the maps are as good as like Durazendrak and BO3. But I do want to say like Durazendrak is really, really good because you have to build a wonder weapon, which takes time, and then you also have to do a bunch of different steps. And now like speedrunners, after years and years of speedrunning this map, it's down to like 27-28 minutes, and that's just because everyone knows the map inside and out. And I feel like if we were able to do that for zombies, where it takes a lot longer to solve, like that took an entire day to solve, it would just make everyone enjoy the maps more so. So I feel like they could extend the Easter eggs a lot. But anyways, guys, for overall Easter eggs, I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. I wasn't a huge fan of it, and I feel like the Easter eggs are so important to zombies and how much the community likes it, and I just wish it was a little bit better. Alright guys, next up is going to be the storyline. Now there are a lot of people that really love the storyline. There's a lot of people that don't like it as well, and I don't really know where I see myself. I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I think that the Ether storyline originally was so good, and I feel like the Dark Ether storyline kind of went a little bit too fast and didn't really flesh everything out, in my opinion. Now of course there's the argument with Intel, but I feel like the Intel system didn't really work that well for people that didn't really care about the storyline. Whereas like in Black Ops 4, for example, if you were, you know, doing the Easter eggs, you would understand the story completely. Whereas I feel like the storyline, there's so much info in the different like intel and stuff that you're getting that it doesn't really make anyone want to go and read it. So I think that they could have done a better job with that potentially, especially the intel portion. But I think the storyline was actually pretty good because I've gone in depth and read everything and things like that, and I think that it was really cool that like Samantha and Eddie come back in the storyline. It started off with Samantha, and then we have Weaver, and we have all the other characters like Kravchenko and Dr. Peck and Jaeger and like all this stuff. I thought it worked out really well, to be honest. And I'm not a huge fan of the operator system, which I'm not even going to talk about in this video, but that really ruined the story for me a little bit. So for overall storyline, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, but that's being pretty generous. Alright guys, next up is replayability, one of the most important things when it comes to Call of Duty Zombies. And overall, I would say that replayability is pretty good in this game, especially for Dark Ether camo, and also having Outbreak and having to get all the intel by killing special enemies. I know a lot of new people came to Zombies from playing Outbreak. I'm not a huge fan of it, but there are a lot of people that actually really enjoy it and continue to replay that mode over and over, even though it's the same objectives. And I'm a little worried when it comes to Vanguard for that, because having way more objectives would be much better for this mode, and it would make me and a lot of other people want to play it more. But I think it does have a pretty good replayability, especially with new weapons being released multiple times per season was really good, and that added a lot of replayability for me, because whenever a new weapon came out, I would go grind it out, get Dark Ether on it and stuff like that, and I had fun doing it. So overall for replayability, I would give this a 7 out of 10. I'm going to talk about game modes towards the end of the video, so that definitely adds replayability as well. Alright guys, next up is going to be enemy types, and I just want to start off by saying that the Orda was actually a pretty good boss. I'm not a huge fan that they brought it into 2 separate boss fights, like on Firebase Z and then the second Outbreak Easter egg. I wasn't a huge fan of that, and those boss fights were a lot easier than just the Ordas that roam around in Outbreak. I think that those are just tanks overall, which kind of annoys me that they're on every map, but nonetheless, it was a pretty good enemy. And then of course we have Manglers, we have Mimics, we have Tempests, we have Disciples, we have Panzers, we have Megatons. All those different bosses added a very unique thing, including Plague Hounds and Hellhounds. The play counts are just OP. It's not even fair. But other than that, I think that all the enemies were really good. It challenged the player, especially Megatons and things like that. And I think that was a really good aspect of Cold War Zombies. And even the boss fights, the one against Valentina, the one against Forsaken, and the one against Legion, all three of those boss fights were absolutely fantastic. And I really enjoyed all of those boss fights. Those were probably the highlight for me when it comes to Cold War Zombies. So overall, for enemy types, I would give Cold War a 9 out of 10. They kind of knocked it out of the park with these bosses, and I think they did a really good job. Alright guys, next up is going to be the wonder weapons. We had a ton of different wonder weapons. We have the Die with all the different variants. We had the Ray Gun, the Ray K, the Cerberus, and the Crystal Axe. And the Ray Gun was on all of the maps except for Firebase C, which had the Ray K, which I think was the worst map out of all of them when it comes to the different like strats you could do for high rounds, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But I think that the Ray K was just not that great. It was probably the worst wonder weapon. The Die didn't really have that many good things at all going for it until they added the ability to actually pack a punch it recently with the start of season 6. So I thought that was a really good addition that they added to buff it a little bit. But it just seems like the Ray Gun is by far the best weapon, unless you're playing on Mauer, where the Cerberus is definitely the best weapon. The Crystal Axe I think is a really cool wonder weapon, and it's a good idea that it can switch between SMG and Axe, but it gets really weak once you start getting into the 30s, and then you need to use the Ray Gun, or if you decide to, you could use like an M79 or China Lake, whatever you like to call it. So overall, I would say that the wonder weapons are pretty good and enjoyable to use, so I'm going to give them an 8.5 out of 10. Alright guys, next up is high rounds, and I like to stream on Twitch, and a lot of my friends like to stream on Twitch, and some of my friends are really good high rounders, and a lot of them did a really good job at streaming a lot of high rounds and growing their channels a ton when it comes to Cold War Zombies. So it seems like the viewer base really enjoys watching high rounds in Cold War Zombies, and a lot of people that never have reached round 100 are actually able to do it in Cold War Zombies. So for that reason, I think that the high rounds actually were really good for this game. Not only could you get past 255, you could basically keep going. A few people were able to reach 935, and then the round just keep repeating, and it doesn't go any higher than that. So it's really cool. But one huge downside about high rounds when you start getting really high is the game crashes, and really the only map that doesn't crash that I've seen is if you do the first room on Die Machine and also on Firebase C, and those are the only two maps I believe that people were able to reach 935. So there is a stuttering issue as well if you're on like PC as well. So those were like the huge drawbacks, but overall I think high rounds were really successful. People even got really high rounds on Outbreak as well. So for high rounds, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I think that they did a really good job with high rounds for this game. And last but not least guys, the last and final topic out of the 10 is going to be game modes. Now, round based seems to me like the one that a lot of people really enjoy playing, especially the hardcore zombies players. So obviously having this was really good. And then they also added an Outbreak, and it seems like it brought a lot of new people to zombies. So as much as I'm not a huge fan of it, I will say that Outbreak was a good addition to the game, especially for bringing new players that were more familiar with like Warzone. Bringing that aspect to zombies was a really cool twist, and I think that the maps were huge, and it added a lot of new replayability for those types of players that were coming to zombies. So for that, I would just give the game modes like a really high grade right off the bat. But we are not done there. We also had Dead Ops Arcade, which is something that I really enjoy, and the fact that they added first person added a ton of more people to enjoy the mode. And I think that honestly, I think Dead Ops Arcade was probably my favorite part about Black Ops Cold War. It was really enjoyable. It's really challenging, and once you learn like all the tips and tricks and cool things you can do, it makes the mode so much more fun, and that's why I really enjoy it personally. But I think that overall, even adding in The other game modes like Cranked and stuff, I wasn't a huge fan of those, but people did enjoy it. And then obviously with the new Halloween update, that was a lot better than the Christmas update. So for that, I'm giving game modes an 8.5 out of 10. I think they did a really good job. When are we going to see Grief? People have been asking for it since BO3. I don't know if they're ever going to add it in, but I would really like to see that. So anyways, guys, overall, adding all the scores together, I got an 80 out of 100. So that is basically a B- for Black Ops Cold War Zombies. It definitely was not the worst, but it definitely was not the best either. And overall, I think that the game ended up being really good, and I was happy with the content this year, all the different things that they added to zombies, and I'm really looking forward to Vanguard. I hope that Vanguard can receive a higher grade than this one and continues an upward trajectory for zombies and zombies fans. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Let me know your grade down below in the comment section. My name is GregFPS, the Zombies Extraordinaire, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.